the first hackathon was not until another 2 months. So I still had never done a hackathon before. All I knew was I wanted to have 1,000 of them in the first 5 years and then be able to help 1 billion people over the next 25.
Ahmad, what's up with you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Like life feels like it's getting back on track right now.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I would say things are definitely hectic on my end, trying to keep my head above water. But you know, I'm just glad to be here with you and with the listeners and sharing another great entrepreneur story.
Yeah, man. And I hear some sniffles, and you know I'm planning a trip up to your area soon, so you need to get that cleared up before I come up to visit.
Yeah, man, this thing just hit me out of nowhere. As the winter's wrapping up, that's when I finally, catch a cold.
What are the odds, right?
just my luck. But yeah, I'm over here trying to fight this thing, and plenty of fluids and much rest.
Oh man. Well, I hope you get better soon, man.
Appreciate it. Today's episode, we're going to be talking to Joey Womack, co-founder of Amplify4Good and Goody Nation. This guy, he's based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep, he's doing some awesome work. Goody Nation, it's an awesome company within the nonprofit social impact space where he just brings a lot of creative minds together to figure out ways for the community to solve problems, because he has this thesis where a lot of the resources to solve some of the world's biggest problems are already embedded within the community. It's just improving the efficiencies between these organizations. So that's Goody Nation and the good work he's doing there. And then Amplify4Good is just the flip side, where he was like, oh, for-profit companies want to get some of this innovation love too. So, let me go out and train these folks on how to get that startup culture within their organizations.
Yeah, and some of these companies that he's worked with, such as Google, Coca-Cola, Ford, a lot of great companies, and he actually shares some of these anecdotes of how he actually acquired these very large companies as customers. One of the things that we also go into within this episode is just a variety of different topics pertaining to ideation, product development, customer discovery, hackathons, process improvement.
It's basically learn lean methodology, because that's everything that's going to be covered within this, the steps within your minimal viable product to get that up and running, the ways of making your process scalable to where it saves you time and energy, and where you're not always just working in the business. You actually can be strategic within your business instead. Yeah. Social impact as well too is the underlining thesis within everything too, because that's something that Joey's been passionate about, and he talks about the intricacies of making that happen.
Yeah, so before we get into it, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, whether you're listening on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Hit subscribe right now, not later, but right now.
You starting to sound like a info commercial. I love it though, because it's clear. one action, subscribe. Yeah. Everybody happy. I love it.
Cool. Hey, let's go ahead and get into it, Ahmad.
All right, let's get into the show, bro.
Cool breeze.
Joey, I just want to thank you again for joining us. We actually, this is our second time trying to record this podcast with Joey, and the first time, me and Amal will have to admit that we definitely fumbled it. We had some technical difficulties with the application that we're using. But Joy, graciously decided to come back on and let us get this recorded podcast done. So thank you, Joy, for joining us again.
Not a problem. No problem.
I'm happy to have you on the show because our listeners, man, you're doing some amazing work, and it's just the impact of your work isn't just specifically to Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm sure it's spread out across the states. There's some highlights about you in the press. McDonald's did a spotlight of you for Black History Month. The Huffington Post recognized you as one of the top 20 innovators within the Atlanta startup community. Hippopotamus in Atlanta has done many write-ups about you in the community. General Assembly, The Root, Rise Mag. You're doing your thing in this your space of innovators and social entrepreneurship and just entrepreneurship in general, and just helping people find a way to carve out a path within this tech space. And so I'm just super excited about you. And I remember learning about your first company, Amplify4Good, when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and seeing how that grown from Amplify4Good is for the listeners, is like the for-profit of your arm, where it's focused on helping orgs create social impact. And then you have the whole Goody Nation portion, which is the more non-for-profit side, about empowering people to solve problems within their communities. And so there's just a lot of gems, and we're going to break down that's the intent. Is this a breakdown and cover that story of how you're able to build both of those companies and have all the success that you're having today. But before we do that, and you may already know this, we ask one particular question before we dive into all those details. Yeah, you already know the question. I think in the last one we had gotten to this part. we got to this part of the last one, so I think he already knows a question. But you're ready for this one. You're not ready. You're not ready for the other questions, but I know you're ready for this one. What is that one hip hop song that gets you hyped up in the zone before your a major pitch or important meeting?
Man. It changes, man. Things come out. You know what I'm saying? Things come out. Earlier day I was watching the new Dave Chappelle stand up. You know what I'm saying? At the very end, they talked about Tribe and stuff like that. But
I gotta catch that. I'm so looking forward to that. That new Dave Chappelle show. Yeah,
it's a good look, man. But I'll say this, man. So, recently, it's not necessarily a recent song, but I say Tribe Called Quest, the space program.
I've been sleeping on that Tribe Called Quest. I won't lie, I have, but I gotta check that out.
Yeah, so that's been my kick recently, man. We may do this in 2 weeks. I may have another one. Who knows?
So let's get right into it. I think Ahmad did a good job of really laying out kind of what you've been doing for the last couple years, and some of the accolades and media mentions as well, just within the last couple weeks, right? Because Black History Month was last month, so that was definitely very recent. Congratulations on that as well. One of the things that we definitely want to really get into is helping our audience to really understand, because you have two different companies that you're currently working on right now that we at least know of, right? Two big companies that you're working on right now. But one thing we definitely want to get into is really kind of understanding between Amplify4Good and Goody Nation. Which one did you start working on first?
Yeah, I would go with Goody Nation for the spirit. There's an interesting story behind that, but let's go with Goody Nation.
Okay. Well, we definitely want to get into that story because that was going to be my next question. How what were the inflection points that had gotten you to the point where you're like, I'm going to actually start working on this idea, working on this business?
Yeah, so as I kind of alluded to, I had a previous startup that focused on parties. This goes all the way back to when I was in college, and did it after I graduated, and did it full time. And so it was more of an email service. Like, we're going to email people about parties and do some photos and resell some tickets, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of great stories in that. But then I decided to pivot to an actual tech startup. Long story short, in the process of learning how to do like true startup technology and raise funds, I learned about a lot of really cool things in tech, like lean startup, customer development, how to raise money, so on and so forth, right? And so I started a Facebook group that was about educating, at that time, Black tech entrepreneurs and other like really good minority entrepreneurs on how to be better by using these philosophies. And so I grew to be about 300 really good people from all across the US. And it just really evolved into doing a support series for those individuals. And so, we did this event called Founders Therapy. And so in the process of me trying to I realized I kind of had something big here and I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do with it. And so I decided to kind of stop the previous startup and focus on this, at that time, this Facebook group, and turn it into an actual company. Tons and tons and tons of stories, but eventually I kind of landed on doing hackathons for good, taking that talent from the group and using that talent to help out people in underserved areas all over the country.
So were you the one that actually started that Facebook group that eventually turned into a business?
Yeah, it was. I did. Yep. And it was really, honestly, it was a way. So what was happening? I was reading all these really good articles online, right? And people to follow on Twitter and, TechCrunch articles and all this amazing stuff that was free. And so I would email one person, email a mentor, yo, you got to check out this dope article. It can really change the way you look at business. And every day, because I read so much, I was emailing one person. Then it was 2 people. Then it was 3. Then it was 6. Then it was 10. And I needed a better way to distribute the content that I was reading all the time. And so I just figured, and so this when Facebook groups started to become a little bit more popular. So I just started the group as an easier way to distribute the content. Well, that group turned into a community. And so people would meet each other, and a lot of honestly, Black people in tech are in that group. And it was some of their first ways of ever meeting each other.
What did you discover that the people within that Facebook group that you created back then, was there a common theme that they kept asking that they wanted an answer to for starting their business and their companies?
Yeah, the major thing was funding. Everyone was talking about how to get funding. I knew that wasn't the role that I wanted to play. I figured it was too difficult to try to get, that wasn't my wheelhouse, right? And so I started thinking about innovative ways to help people either, get the money in a different way or take care of the same expenses they were going to use that money for in a different way. So again, you're going to raise money to spend, right? You're just not going to raise money to just have it sit in the bank account, for the most part. So
We're not
Apple. So I was like, if you're going to spend it on something, let's try to figure out a way for you to get that expense category for free or reduced, which is in effect helping you to raise money. So that's how some of my thoughts kind of evolved.
Was there a story? Is there a story of a creative solution that you did, an example that?
Well, I'll tell you, and this was really my first real foray into social impact. And so at the same time I was putting this Facebook group together, I actually, with the startup, I got a chance to do a series of events with Crown Royal. And so, honestly, they let me do the events, but I was really trying to sell them on our startup's, software to manage their events better. And so they just kind of threw their, I kind of pitched them on the software, and they're like, okay, that's cool, but why don't you just do these events for us? Promote these events. So I'm like, I don't really promote events like that, but I'll do it if I can get in front of you and yada, yada, yada. And so we had this event. It was one of those celebrity joints, free alcohol, free admission, free food, celebrity DJ. And you had to get on the guest list for it. So that's what we did. We helped people manage their guest list. And this was during the Atlanta Football Classic between Florida A&M and Tennessee State. And so because I knew all the kind of the key influencers from FAMU, I invited all of them out. And this is the first time that group had ever been to that type of environment during the Atlanta Football Classic or even a homecoming weekend. And I saw all the key people, all the people in SGA, all the influencers from the yard, the fraternity, sorority folks across multiple generations, people younger than me, my generation and older. And I was like, wow, what if we use this type of environment to raise money for the school and then take these people's skills and allow them to do skills based or basically pro bono work for the school? So that again, you kind of take their talent and use that to take away some expenses, which is in the same case, cash. So that was one of my first real forays in using my ability and my connections within entertainment, my ability to pull together really talented people, all as a way to kind of help reduce expenses for, at that time, Florida A&M University.
You explained an example of lean methodology, customer discovery, MVP. You just provided a clear example of that. Turning a Facebook group into leveraging that into a relationship with Crown Royal, doing an event where you had an MVP of some software that you wanted to pitch and how that really didn't turn out to how you expected it to turn out. But I mean, but from that, you realized that, wow, this environment that I created, I could do actually something bigger than what I actually was trying to pitch to Crown Royal. And it seems like that's what gave you the foundation to know that you can be successful with Goody Nation, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, man. It was, a lot of the stuff is about communities of people, finding out what people really care about, talking, like presenting their value proposition to them. I mean, I learned a lot, and it was my kind of own experiment in taking lean startup and really tech methodologies and applying them in a non-tech way. And I've used those examples over and over again. A lot of people haven't caught on, especially as I still use them because I still do some stuff in entertainment away from social impact. But yeah, it's proven to be really successful.
Can you share so once you came to that realization, what were the next steps that led to solidifying this as a business?
Oh man, I mean, I'm not even gonna lie to you, like. Man, I mean, I make a long story short. They often say that when some people believe in God and various things, but I'm gonna say like you'll hear this knock, so to speak. It's just super loud, and it gets to the point to where you can't really avoid it. And so that was the case for me. And so I kept on hearing this calling. I talk about the hero's journey all the time. This calling to use this Facebook group for good, right? And so finally in 2013, I decided to step away. In January, I sent out this big email and went on social media. I'm retiring for the party game to figure out how I'm going to help out Black tech entrepreneurs, right? And a month later, still didn't have any idea. I'm back doing parties so I can make a little bit of money because I got a great opportunity. But I kept on still trying to figure it out. And, I'll say it wasn't until October of 2013, I got a call, to do some events during, the 2014 Atlanta Startup Week that were around diversity. They wanted some events that would bring more people of color into the ecosystem. And so I came up with, it actually took me 2 more months. So it wasn't until the end December, like mid-December of 2013, that I came up with these 3 concepts, one of which was for Goody Hack, our first ever hackathon. And so at that point, I had never done a hackathon before in my life. I had been a mentor at one, but I had this idea that, it's a great way to help out the community if we can help out nonprofits using technology. And so I did it. The first one was on March 1st of 2014. And here we are. But it really came from somebody calling me and challenging me to come up with some events. I mean, it wasn't like a throw down the gauntlet type of challenge, but it was, hey, can you do this? And I was like, my first thought was really, no, I probably can't. But then my second thought was, because you don't challenge me, I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I respected the person who asked me. So I took it as a challenge and here we are.
Why with Goody Nation are the hackathons so special? Like what's the value that, like, especially for our listeners who maybe never been to a hackathon before in the past, like why should they get involved, or like what happens there that makes them so good and so valuable?
Yeah. So, one, I fuse like three, so if I do like a hashtag of myself, or if I ever post a photo, theoretically, I would put hashtag nightlife, hashtag tech, and hashtag social impact. And so when you come to our stuff, what you'll see is almost a party type of feel, like more like a house party. Like, the best parties you ever been to in your life are more so house parties, right?
Yeah.
There are only like 20, 30 people there at most usually.
But it's the right people.
It's the right people. It's small environments. You get all that energy and stuff like that. So that's what we try to recreate. We try to have decently small environments, good up-tempo music, and just create this super great vibe. And so when you throw in there very talented people that are diverse, it's just not people of color. You got people from all backgrounds, ethnicities, religions, all there together. And they're all unified to help out people that need it the most. Like people, like it's very talented people in a very fun environment, all for the greater good. And when you add up all three of those ingredients together, it just makes for magic, quite honestly.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a hackathon I would love to go to.
I mean,
I was
going to say, and if we're to make sure everyone's on the same page about what hackathons and ideation sessions are, like I give a non-tech example. If you think back to college or high school or something like that, when you're given like a group project and they may give it to you, let's say, at the beginning of the semester, but in typical, form and fashion, you BS, you wait all semester to the very last minute to make it happen. Just imagine you never even talk to your group mates. So it's a group project, and like your entire semester's grade is dependent upon this group project. Well, you don't even talk to your group mates until 2 days before it's due, 48 hours. So then you gotta work together during finals week for 48 straight hours. Y'all might not go to sleep. You may have a bunch of energy drinks, a bunch of pizza. You may stay up for 48 hours straight and get this semester's worth of work done. And then you got to present it in front of everybody else in your class to your professor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then your professor may only give out 1A to like the top team. Like that's a hackathon. Like it's basically you throw people together for 2 days, maybe 3 days, and you produce oftentimes technology that would take months to do. You do it in 48, 72 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that sounds like my semester, every semester when I was at DePaul.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I volunteered at your hackathon at the Google office in Atlanta, and there was a lot of energy drinks. I drank a lot of energy drinks. It was fun though.
Right. Yeah, cats make it happen, man. And now, we've evolved our process. We have ideation sessions. We have weekend hackathons. We have demo days. We have all kind of stuff. We have a more marketing related hackathon. We have a true tech hackathon. It's all kind of stuff, man.
And we'll talk about that evolution. So I'm sure like I know we just talked about like the early portion of the initial idea, but when did you start knowing that you can segment out different types of, I want to call them product offerings within Goody Nation, and how did you identify the impact you can make through those? Yeah,
so when we first started, the thought was our thesis was that our communities have everything that we need already to make the change we want to see happen. It's just that the whole ecosystem of change makers was highly efficient, meaning you'd have somebody, right next to you that was working on the very same problem and you didn't even know it. And so because you didn't know it, you didn't collaborate. And so change was going unmade. And so I thought that instead of creating new nonprofits, and we actually coined this term, no new nonprofits, like a hashtag, no new nonprofits, that if we help the better ones solve some of their problems through technology, that's a faster way to create change. And so the first time we ever did it, it was just one day. Again, I didn't really know any better and didn't even know if anybody would even come out. We learned that, it was great energy and so on and so forth, but more work needed to be done outside of just the hackathon. And so we're like, okay, we did another one, learned a little bit, but it was the same problem. More work needed to be done after the hackathon, but after the hackathon, folks kind of just dropped off. Well, I'm like, okay, cool. So maybe we'll do a 2-day joint. Do Friday night to Saturday night, 24 hours. And then we give everyone, the teams, a business opportunity to go and sell their idea to more people. So that's the one that we had at Google in February 2015. And one of the teams had literally a $1 million idea. A verified person said it was worth $1 million. This team still did not go on. And I'm like, oh my goodness, man. Like, the events are cool, great energy, but we got to develop owners for the products so that they will continue to actually solve the problems. And so now, to make a long story short and throw about 40 events worth of key learnings into it, we've developed this 6-month, basically pre-accelerator that takes people from idea, helping them to identify a problem, coming up with an innovative idea, to one hackathon. So the first event is a design thinking, rapid problem solving lab. Again, help them identify problems, generate cool solutions, ideas for solutions. The second event is a marketing and prototyping hackathon where UI, UX people, designers, turn those ideas into actual prototypes. And then volunteer marketers, graphic designers create logos, landing pages, help them with their revenue model, and then come up with growth marketing plans. About a month after that, we'll have an actual development hackathon where developers and some more designers take those prototypes, turn them into working products. And so then we have a demo day about 2 months later. And so basically within the span of 6 months, you go from idea to working product with a business model around it. And then it puts you in a really good position to get funding, to get partners and customers, so that obviously you can actually build a product and be in a great position for people to use it. And because people are using it, you're getting a lot of, hype around it. You'll actually keep on working to make it better moving forward.
Right there. That's product management 101, 102, 103. Literally every level, right? You're talking going from ideation to, prototyping to the marketing plan, et cetera. I mean, even the business model. And then you go into the demo day. So do you guys actually get investors at the demo day, or is it just, kind of, this is the final presentation and then the participants then, go out and start pitching their ideas?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, so we did the pilot of the program in the last fall. I mean, yeah, you had some investors there, but I'll say this, it can be difficult in social impact. So yeah, we're in tech, it's a startup, but it's still social impact. So a lot of investors don't really know what to do around the investment part of it. Are they investing for the revenue, potential exit, or are they investing for the impact piece of it? So it's a tough deal. We're learning still.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely something that I, actually really had to deal with when I was working on my startup called Good Gov. And, we got it to beta, but just pitching it was definitely a challenge in that, everybody would be like all for it. Yeah, it's a great idea, but how do I make my money back?
Right.
I wonder, are we eventually going to get to the point where these sort of programs eventually become social utility, in that, we start to have some sort of infrastructure, governmental infrastructure around, really solving problems, utilizing technology. Have you seen that sort of support from the city, from Atlanta?
I mean, yeah, most definitely. The cities are really progressive. I'll be interested to see what happens with this upcoming election. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of momentum around social impacts, especially in the tech for good scene, just in like ecosystem here in Atlanta. People still figuring out though. I mean, government is still government, so things move slow. But they are bringing in new, more and more people. I think every month to kind of help figure it out. And we're seeing some positive signs.
That's good. Plus people our generation are starting to take leadership positions, which is definitely needed.
Exactly.
I'll leave it at that.
The Amplify for Good for-profit arm, did that come about because you needed to find a way to make more money to fund Goody Nation? Like how did that piece come about?
No, it was actually an accident.
Oh, okay.
So we had done two public, one-day hackathons and a private one. And we were planning that one for February 2015 at Google. And before that happened, I got a phone call from Care USA. And so they wanted to do an internal hackathon for their employees around essentially training them on how to think like a tech entrepreneur, new innovation, methodologies, philosophies. But then they also wanted it as a way to solve some of the internal issues that Care USA was facing. And like all companies, you have internal projects, right? So we trained a lot of their emerging leaders, company leaders from all over the world. Most of them were not in the US. So we're training them online, people in Africa and the Middle East and in Southeast Asia and South America on some of those very same tools that I was talking about with the Facebook group. And so quite honestly, the people from Care and, they'll tell you like they actually thought that we were a startup weekend. So what happened, they were looking for a company.
Oh, so that's actually was going to be my next question was, they just call you out of nowhere. Like, what's the backstory?
Yeah, no. So they were looking for someone to do hackathons. And so they were going around their network. They're asking around. And so one of my friends, actually my old college roommate's wife, knew the person at Care. And so she was telling them about it. Oh, this guy's awesome, yada, yada, yada. And so at the time, we did not have a recap video of our hackathon. So she found one online of another company and said, this is what a hackathon is. And this is what this company can do. They just thought that we were that company. So it wasn't until after we actually signed the contract and had the first kickoff meeting. And she was like, yeah, I saw that video that you all did with Coca-Cola. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, that is hilarious.
And I was like, that wasn't us.
That's a blessing right there.
Yeah. And after that, ironically, a year and a half later, we were working with Coca-Cola. We did a hackathon. We did one for them. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. That's crazy.
You notice how Joey just like casually breezed over the fact that he had Google as a client, Care USA, and now Coca-Cola as clients for this Amplify for Good company that happened by accident. You're a humble guy, but like you like
random calls.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's definitely interesting. Like, yeah. And so, I mean, after that Care USA thing, like a bunch of, companies kept on calling really, really too much. And I was like, yo, this is not really what I'm trying to do, but here it is. And so, then I had what developed into like two different businesses, quite honestly. And so that was all of 2016. And so I spent the majority of 2016 trying to separate the two business models. At that point, it was just one company. Now they're two different companies, and I kind of had to, split off and had to move people and, that took a lot. Like some people that were working on like both type of projects, I put them on the Goody Nation side. Some people were on the Amplify for Good side. And
that's actually a question I actually wanted to really kind of get into as well. As the founder of both, and obviously you mentioned you have people working on both companies. How do you manage your time between two startups?
Man, it's tough, bro. It's almost impossible. I mean,
we want to know for personal reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I mean, it's tough. I almost lost it last year. Like like pressure. I felt like I was on a rocket ship. I was on a single kind of like rocket ship that had 2 boosters on it, right? And so those boosters were breaking off and going in different directions. You know what I'm saying? But they're still on a rocket ship type path. And I feel like I was being pulled apart. Like literally at one point I felt like I was being pulled apart, and I just had to, I made it through. Thank God I made it through. And, now I'm all about building processes and stuff like that and infrastructure in order to make things more efficient. So that's where a lot of my effort goes now. And unfortunately I've done so many of these, like I have templates. And so things that would take me, let's say 10 hours, it may only take me 1 hour to do now.
What's one technique or process that our listeners can implement while they're figuring out so they don't have to make those same type of frustrating pulling apart imagery?
Yeah. I mean, so from a very practical standpoint, like, so I use teamwork.com to do project management. And so some people use like stuff like Asana and things like that. Like I like teamwork.com, and it made this, I'm sure other services have it, but it allows you to create templates for your tasks. So now I can say, okay, we have a hackathon coming up. This is a template. These are all the tasks I need to execute this particular function. So I have a template around marketing. I have a template around the operations. I have a template around everything that we need to do around our curriculum. And so all I got to do is hit template, and then apply to the project. Now, the great thing about that is it forces you to think about what are the tasks that you do every time a project comes up, which isn't really easy when you think about it. Like you do certain things every single time. It's almost like putting on your clothes or like waking up in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Okay, first thing you do is people have various things when they wake up in the morning, right? But some people just have the very same routine. The process of sitting down and figuring out your routine when it comes to executing a project or anything else is very valuable. And so, going through that, and when I started to list everything out, it was something like well over 200 tasks for every hackathon. And I was like, wow, I'm doing a lot of work. So I would say go to Teamwork, create a template, force yourself to think about the routine you do, and then template that thing out. And then just check those boxes, and then create documents around it. So now, like, for instance, when somebody say, so we're doing, an innovation lab, during the HBCU Springcoming in New York in April, right? At Twitter not headquarters, but at Twitter in New York. And so they asked me like, hey, what are some of the things that you need? And so now I just got a document that I could just go on Dropbox and just send them in like 2 seconds. Like I'm on the way to our company retreat. I'm like, okay, let me take 2 seconds and send you this list. In the past, it would have taken me 20 minutes to type that list out. So now I just got documents on documents on documents, or I can go on Google Drive, hit copy, copy, change a few, items here and there. And I got the same thing, like a runner show. We're doing this. So now we're doing a hackathon, really an entire innovation program for the Atlanta airport. And so it used to take me 2 hours to do a runner show. Now I just did one in 15 minutes.
No, that's man, so much good information right there.
It's so like simple that you think, I think sometimes we wait for like magical insight, but sometimes it's just the simplest thing to just think through.
But I think that, to use your word, there is some magical insight in that, literally he said last year, between managing both, he felt like he was being pulled apart, but now that he's kind of really, made things a little bit more processes, having different templates. Some that would take 20 minutes now takes 2 minutes, or some that takes, 4 hours now takes 20 minutes. I mean, that is, time is, worth more than money. And if you can save time, that's less overhead as far as, employees and contractors, et cetera. That's more time for you as the person running the show to be able to strategize, and you get a lot more done in a short amount of time. And you also get your mental health too.
Yeah. And if I could add in, like, even just kind of just very practical things like standardizing what you offer. Oftentimes, depending on the type of business, it's very tempting to like, especially if like a big name client comes in or somebody that's worth like a lot of money, for them to make certain like requests that are a little bit more or different than what you do. It's like, oh man, Nike is called, so I got to do this a little bit. Well, guess what? Every time you tweak your offering, whatever you offer, a product or a service, you're adding additional tasks that probably are new to you. That means you're going to have to spend more time in learning what to do, and it has a domino effect downstream. So it actually creates a lot more inefficiency. So if you have like, sometimes it's confidence or whatever, you can say, you know what, we don't do this. Like as bad as this may sound, just try to make people conform to what your customers conform to what you do. And it ends up saving you a lot of time in the long run.
Yeah. And, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but, just saying no.
Just saying no, exactly.
Just saying no, like, this is not what we do. This is what we offer. You can, take what we offer, but what you're asking for is not what we do.
I hate to play devil's advocate because in technology, we always talk about...
Do you really hate playing it? Do you hate it though?
Don't do me so, yeah. Let me ask my question. No, but in technology, we always talk about, listening to the customer and like responding to the customer needs. So like Joey, like in that same breath, how do you balance that too?
No, that's a very good question. So here's the thing, right? Like the old folks tell you, it's not what people say, it's what people do. So what you want to see is what people may say, like, oh, this is what I want or whatever, may not necessarily correlate to what their actions are, meaning will they actually walk away from you? That's a different story. Like if they're willing to walk, then yeah, and if enough people are saying it, then yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you may want to look at your model and see what's different. And see about, changing things. But sometimes people they're just going to keep on asking because they can. Like if you go to a hotel, if you know that they're going to keep on upgrading you or giving you extra amenities, you're going to keep on asking them for extra stuff. Right? I mean, it's just like human nature to a certain extent. At some point, when that person at the hotel is like, you know what, Mr. Smith, we're just not gonna, we don't do that. You're like, okay, cool. You're gonna keep on going about your day, like you originally planned. So there is that balance between what they say and what they do. But to make it a little bit more practical, when you're first starting out, you're like a baby, right? I mean, you're more malleable. I mean, they can shape you and so on and so forth. So if anything, you can experiment then. But still look for trends. If everyone's asking you for feature B, well, then maybe you should look at doing feature B. But if people are asking you for stuff all over the space, then you got to kind of stick to your guns.
I want to shift the question though, or shift the conversation a little bit. You mentioned like one of your goals is to reach impact the lives of 1 billion people before 2039, I believe. I just want to hear the story behind that. That's a lofty, big, huge, major goal. How do you plan on achieving that?
So going back to the whole thing around Goody Hacks, right? So quick recap, January 2013, and I'm like, I'm out, son. I'm out. No more parties. I'm gonna figure out this business model. Then I got a call to do some parties in Orlando in February, and I came back, and then October 2013, I got the call to come up with some diversity event concepts, and in December is when I actually mid-December is when I came up with the idea for a Goody Hack. Okay. But in October of 2013, like the day after I got that call, I got notified of this program out in San Francisco that was like its first version of the program for, social entrepreneurs. And so, it's called the Hive, HIVE. And so I applied, let's say it's like October, let's say 14th is when I got the call to come up with these diversity events. October 15th is when I applied for Hive. December 14th is when I came up with the idea for Goody Hack. The very next day, I got accepted into the Hive program. And so it was like, the program was 30 days later, which was MLK weekend, January 2014. So I got into the program on the idea of the Facebook group. But by the time I actually arrived there, I had the hackathon idea. So hopefully that makes sense. I applied with a different idea. By the time I showed up on their doorstep, I had another idea around the hackathon for good. Okay. So the first day of the program, the founder of the program says, hey, how can you affect change for 1 billion people? Like 1 billion. And so there's like 30 folks in the room. At the time I'm living, by the baseball field in Atlanta, trying to help out black tech entrepreneurs and, do some stuff with nonprofits, yada, yada, yada. But my roommate there was from India, like 27 years old. This guy was a decently high ranking official in the Indian government. And he was like, I want to become prime minister of India one day. And I'm like, damn, like that's like seriously? That's like meeting a young Barack. He's like, I want to become president of the United States. Like,
step up your game, Joey.
Exactly. Like, he can get to $1 billion. Another young lady, she wants to become the first female prime minister of Nepal. Like, her dad is like a very high ranking official in the government there. And I'm like, wow, this is for real. Like, another young lady was on the same swim team as Michael Phelps, and she was a gold medal winner. There was another dude from Russia who was working on the whole singularity moment when the robots take over the world. And I'm like, snap, son. Like, like for real? Like y'all really trying to get to 1 billion people. And so I started thinking, like, again, you can't challenge me without me coming back on you. So this was like a Saturday morning. By that Monday, about MLK Day, I had a plan to help out 1 billion people. I figured out a way to scale the hackathon for good concept and wanted to do it all over the world. And so again, the crazy part was the first hackathon was not until another 2 months. So I still had never done a hackathon before. All I knew was I wanted to have 1,000 of them in the first 5 years and then be able to help 1 billion people over the next 25. So that's how it all came about. And quite honestly, and so a quick story, it was actually a misunderstanding. When Ryan, the guy over Hive, asked a question for 1 billion people, he actually meant how we collectively in the room, all 30 some odd people in the room, could come together to help 1 billion. But I took it as, how could each of us help 1 billion? Meaning, like, how could I do it? And so that's what I ran with the whole concept. So
he saw the bigger pro. He's like, okay, I'll go over the bigger challenge.
Yeah. So here I am.
That's dope, man. It sounds like you're definitely well on your way.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
One of the things that we both noticed in our research was, obviously you're very much about processes and efficiency. And one of the things that also came up was you seem to be very focused on metrics and KPIs. And I'm curious to know, like, how, I'm assuming that you're definitely having some keeping up with the metrics on, reaching those 1 billion people. But I'm also curious to know, like, how you also implement KPIs and metrics in your business overall.
That's a good question. Yeah. So I'm like a data nerd. Like, I was that kid growing up, and I grew up when Nintendo first came out, like the first ever Nintendo. Like, so I was that kid playing Tecmo Bowl when they didn't even keep track of stats. I would do my own stats.
Oh, really?
Summertime, had a notebook, have Bo Jackson, on the 1 yard line, and run a play and shake it like 85 people off and run like 99 yards, pause, Bo Jackson, 1 carry, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. I did that every single play, dog. And so, that was me. And so, it's interesting. So I do get that question about how we create impact, how we track it. For me, it was about, originally we were all about helping companies, especially like nonprofits, help more people. So the way I was tracking it then was, okay, if we helped, let's say, Care USA go from 70 million people to helping 75 million people, well, guess what? Our impact was 5 million people. That difference, like how many more people could they help through our efforts, right? So that was kind of our easier way to do it. Now I'm involved in so many different things. I mean, we've realized the impact is in many, many, many different ways, from helping people get exposure to resources to creating companies that then go on to help, X amount of people. So we can count their impact in our number. All kind of stuff, man. I mean, in some of the things that we do help entrepreneurs have peace of mind. I mean, which is invaluable. And I really don't have a way to calculate that ROI or those metrics. But, it's in terms of, how many people do we connect to mentors? connect to opportunities, expose to new type of things. And so it's tons and tons of metrics. We provide tons of value that are kind of direct and kind of indirect as well.
Joy, I recognize that you get approached by the press quite frequently to talk about Goody Nation and Amplify for Good. However, I'm sure there's probably sometimes moments where you're on a platform to reach an audience, and I'm sure there's sometimes that there's a question that you want the guests to ask you that you want to cover and share with the audience, but they forget to ask or they never think to ask you about your company. So I just wanted to, I guess it's kind of like that Steve Blank question about is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't? And I kind of want to give you that opportunity to explore that and learn that perspective about your company.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. What's coming to mind is, I guess, kind of what's next for us, especially with Goody Nation. So last year we focused on this whole thing around gentrification, right? How could we connect people impacted by gentrification to ways to make or save money? And so this year, our whole theme is around violence prevention. So the name of the campaign is called Hack the Violence, like after the whole Stop the Violence movement. And so it's a tough challenge. And we're going to continue to run at tough problems here at Goody Nation. So the whole thing is basically, how can people reduce the amount of violent deaths in this country, especially by like people of the same race, quite honestly. And so that's what we're working on now. And so we've evolved all of our programming into one big theme. And so we have a youth program where they learn about it. They come up with really cool ideas. We had one a few weeks ago in Atlanta. Some very cool ideas for middle schools and high schoolers. We're launching a college program in June. That's like a 4-week incubator around tech social entrepreneurship to kind of tackle the problem. And then
is it at the university, or is it going to be held at the university?
It's going to be just in Atlanta in general, open to all college students.
Okay. That's dope, man.
Yeah. And so we'll help them come up with ideas, and then also do a little bit of customer discovery, and also have a hackathon where they come up with prototypes and landing pages, so on and so forth. And then the full pre-accelerator will be in the fall. So I'm really looking forward to that. We have lots and lots of key learnings from last year. We're trying to make a lot of improvement. I mean, we're coming out with t-shirts, like Hack the Violence t-shirts. We actually came up with the design. So the full challenge is, how can your team reduce the amount of violent deaths 40% by the year 2020? That's the actual challenge, right? Wow. So we wrote some JavaScript code to explain that actual statement. And so that's going to be on the back of the t-shirt that's going to go on sale in a few weeks.
That's clever. We'll have show notes. So like a lot of the stuff that you're mentioning, we can link it to our show notes for people to view and connect and purchase a t-shirt if they want. But we got this last portion where we're getting to the end of our interview where we're wrapping things up, and it comes to we have our dropping gems section of the show, where it's just like rapid questions that we shoot out. That's really focused on giving our guests some actionable tasks that they can take away and implement within their lives. So the first question though, what is the top 3 tools you would recommend to to yourself when you were first starting out working on the idea?
Yeah, I would definitely do Slack. Slack, Teamwork, and then Google Drive.
Google Drive has been coming up a lot. I like that one a lot too. All right, so cool. You mentioned like you've been busy there. Like last year, this was crazy busy. So what do you do to keep sane?
So I do a little bit of mix. I go to a mixed martial arts gym. So I do a little bit of kickboxing, boxing, sports performance training, weightlifting, and recently I started doing Muay Thai. I actually think I got a concussion recently from my first day. But yeah, so that's one thing. I mean, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, that's just try to work out a little bit, try to release some stress, some frustration, some tension by hitting a bag or at least somebody else.
Hey, whatever it takes, that's dope. Do you have your favorite business book that you think our listeners will find valuable?
Dude, I haven't read a book in a minute.
You're one of those. It's like 50-50 chance.
Yeah, but it's only because I've been so busy. So I mean, but what I do read a lot though. So oftentimes I am on Medium. I pick people to follow on Medium. So, I read their one-off articles. I read Free Code Camp a lot. That's one of the people that I follow a lot. Who else? I've been decently, honestly, man, on a kick recently, like on this whole automation tip and how robots are going to take away everybody's job. And so I've been reading up a lot about that. You can look on Humanizing Tech. That's the one person you can really follow. Yeah, I mean, that's just some of the stuff. Hell, just follow me on Medium and I'll just share a lot of stuff.
There's one last question, and this one is kind of a question that makes people pause a little bit and think a little bit about what is something that you do not want an app to replace.
That's interesting, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'll just say this, man. I am deeply worried, and this doesn't really answer your question, but I am really deeply worried about automation and the jobs that it's replacing and stuff like that. So, honestly, I'm not as worried about anything that really affects me per se, but just the fact that it's taking away jobs from people, especially people, honestly, of color. Their jobs are going to be some of the first that go away, if not going away already. That's the big thing. And then what happens? And I think people in tech know this already. That's why they're talking about this, universal basic income. They know where it's going to be in 15, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been on my mind heavy for the last 2 months. Not 2 months, but like 2-3 weeks. Sorry.
Well, you're on the way of your work is about it's kind of involving in re-educating people on this digital, like filling that digital divide through your training. So you're on your way of making a positive impact to be a solution to that problem.
Appreciate it, man.
So Joey, can you share with the people the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Joey Digital, it's probably the best way. Also, I'm on Medium. I think that is at Joey Womack though. But just follow me on Twitter at Joey Digital, and you can kind of go from there.
Thanks so much, Joey, for joining us today. There was some really, really, really great stuff in there, and I really hope that you guys were paying attention and jotting down some of these notes, some of these gems that Joey was dropping. We'll definitely be sure to include different tools and resources that he mentioned in the show notes.
You're doing some amazing work in Atlanta, and it's spreading to different cities. Like you hinted at, I'm ready to watch you impact a billion lives, and happy to be a part of however I can help in the future. So yeah, man, it's really, really dope interview. And thanks again for joining us for the show.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate it, brothers. We'll talk soon.
Sounds great, man.
All
Thanks.
right.